Hi everybody, welcome to Evermore Podcast, the Newcastle United podcast on the Evermore YouTube channel. Some technical difficulties to kick off there. The video stopped for some strange reason, but you've got Chris and Mark on tonight. We're back with another What's Going On show. Mark, how you doing, mate? Technical difficulties, mate. Great start.
I'm looking at my screen going, there's nothing happening on here. I can't see anything. You look like you were starting. I was like, oh no, what have I done? But yeah, that was a strange. Sorry about that, folks.
That's all right. I blame the heat, mate. I blame the heat. I'm not actually wearing a t-shirt. This is just the colour I've turned thanks to the heat wave in the northeast in Costa de Tyneside, mate. So it's all scrambling the brains a little bit, the old heat. But we're here tonight to have a little bit of a crack really about what's been going on with the club as we have turned the Monday show, formerly known as Pitch Patter, into What's Going On. So just before we get stuck into every single bits and bobs to do in Newcastle, a little bit of housekeeping. If you haven't already, please click that like and subscribe button. We've had loads of new subscribers recently. We really appreciate all the nice new subs and the lovely comments you've dropped for the videos that we've been doing. I think we're close to pushing over 1,300. We're only about 3 away. So if you can get us that 3 tonight and get us over 1,300, we'd absolutely love you forever. So we're going to get stuck into the subject matter, Mark, in a minute. And as I said, it's a nice little segue into pre-season starting. So the first pre-season game was at the training ground, which was against Gateshead. Newcastle, a very strong Newcastle United teammate, coming out 5-1 winners. So pretty good to see the lads back, mate, looking sharp as well. And some decent goals, mate. I know the opposition was a little bit low. No offence, Dan Wales, who'll be shouting at me for that in the comments as he's Gateshead's roving reporter. But it's always good to get a win, isn't it, mate, in the first game?
It's always very. You never want to lose, but it is all about. It's a cliched thing to say, isn't it? It's all about fitness at this point in time, and getting players back into the swing of being in training. It started a hell of a lot better than the lockdown the road started at the weekend, didn't they? Because they lost to Hebron, so there's levels still there. But
that's the sequel. That's the sequel for the Netflix documentary. It's called "Sun Until I Die: Heaven and Hell." That's what it's called. So this is the kickoff of the pre-season.
Well done, well played.
No, I just plucked that one out.
That's very clever. I'd be lost for one-liners like that. I can't think that quickly, but no, it was a good start, wasn't it? You want to see the players back. You want to see them back on the pitch, and they all look raring to go. They all look hungry again. They all look like they're well up for the new season. So good things ahead for them.
Absolutely. We'll just come back to that in a second. Just a few comments even to the Toon Trader. How you doing, Ian? Yeah, my sales are hanging in there, mate. No stock is limiting that, mate. But the channel is going really well, so I really appreciate that. He's got an evening to you as well, mate. Trolls is in the comments. How you doing, Trolls? Good to see you, buddy. Great to have you back in the comments. But yeah, it is good to see the lads kind of back and firing. There just seems to be a different vibe about it. I've seen a few people putting on social media how it compares to kind of last season when we went to York in a scabby minivan that you'd kind of book with 8 of your mates when you're fucking rat-arsed in the town and you're trying to get back to the coast or something like that, and it just looked really miserable and shit. And Steve Bruce was in charge, and I think they were, no offense to the site, Queen Ethelberg is a cracking site, mind you. I've been there myself for work, but it's not really kind of a pre-season. Let's go to the tropical climates of York and play in the university pitches. So it's just nice to see a bit more. And not wrong with York at all. But I love York, but not for a pre-season, not for a pre-season. But so there does seem to be a totally different vibe. Even the players coming back, just looked a bit more, buzzing, happy to be back. Bruno was full of beans when he come in. He was taking a piss out of Miggy, doing his fitness tests and everything else. And there just seems to be a really good camaraderie about the lads on the pitch, mate, as well. And even the the new players coming in as well. Botman was obviously coming into his first training session. We saw that, and there was fans hanging through the fences, screaming at him as "Welcome to Newcastle, Sven." It's going to be quite a lot of that, mate. But he seems to settle in quite well, mate.
There's a few there that you just. Fair enough. A lot of it is young kids that go and see their their favourite players and stuff like that, and you can't begrudge them going to do that.
No.
Some of the older ones it gets a little bit weird. But I get the ones that turned up trying to watch from a distance to try and watch the Gateshead game. That sort of makes sense. You don't want to miss your team playing a game. So, but it does get a little strange at times, doesn't it? Hanging around the entrance to those gates at Benton on Whitley Road, and it's just a strange. It's a strange environment, but yeah, welcome to Newcastle, boys.
I was going to say Sven Botman will definitely be getting used to that. We've got to smash this comment up because Ashley's joined us from South Africa. Thank you so much, mate. Great to have you in the comments, buddy. Hope everything's okay over there. You'll be used to this kind of tropical climate that we're complaining about, mate, currently at the moment, as we're all dying and sweating to death in sunny Tyneside. So yeah, he'll be used to that, mate, completely. But so obviously the lads started off well against Gateshead, as we said there. Quite a strong side coming through. Obviously, Joe Litton looked good as well. I think we've got a comment there coming in from Leroy 316. So Joe Litton, ASM, and Miggy looked the best players on Saturday. You're right. I think Big Joe Litton looked in unbelievable shape, Mark, didn't he? He's an absolute machine, isn't he? To be fair, I don't know if he's been like pulling tugboats over rivers or boats or oceans or something in pre-season and bench pressing trucks or something. But he just looks like he's in fucking phenomenal shape.
I think you watch ASM running up hills. I think Joe Litton's been pulling tankers through the Suez Canal or something. He's just been he's in unbelievable shape and just looks, again, is another one that just looks so full of confidence now in everything that he does. And it's just it sets the precedent now for the rest of pre-season and for the new players coming in, and then for the season kicking off in what is it? It's less than 4 weeks' time now, so we haven't got long.
No, absolutely. It's going to be around the corner any minute now. But it was interesting because we had two different teams, didn't we, in the first half and the second half. And I think the only player to play the full 90 minutes was Kel Watts, which is interesting because I wonder whether Eddie's taking a good look at Kel Watts because he had a really good loan spell, didn't he, last season? Out of all the loan players, obviously Elliot Anderson was a standout. He set up the first goal. He set up Richie's goal. Did really well. Kind of nice close control. Swung it inside. And Richie did the rest, really. Keeper was dreadful, by the way. As a keeper, you must have been tearing your hair out with that one, Mark. But it was still a good bit of play by Elliot Anderson. But yeah, Kel Watt played the full 90. And we had two different sides, really, that kind of took each half. Obviously, Matty Longstaff came on and played the second half as well, which was an interesting one because there's been a lot of talk about Matty. We're hopefully going to be back on Wednesday, and Matty's going to be one of the subjects we're going to talk about, whether Matty deserves another chance. He did okay, didn't he, at Mansfield on loan? He banged in a couple of goals and a couple of assists, and obviously the final was shocking for Mansfield as an actual club. They really bottled that, didn't they, in the end? But I think for Matty, nice to get a run out for him as well, mate, isn't it, in the second half?
Yeah, I think, and there's some of the press had him gone. He didn't feature, and you look at some of the pictures today from Austrian stuff, and he doesn't look like a player that's worried about his place in the squad. And I think he's got an opportunity now to really push and prove he belongs in that squad. And he's got a little bit of time now to show Eddie that he can fit in, he can be a key part of that, because he's definitely got the talent. We've seen it, and we've talked a long time ago, and actually right the way through the last year, that half of those players have all been bruised, and it's taken a while to get.
Yeah, he's the poster child, isn't he? He's the poster child for being bruised. Poor Matty, isn't he? To be fair,
him and his brother are just they're the ones that they just really struggled to come to terms with that way of playing, and it didn't suit them at all. Yeah, and it's taken them a little bit of time to come out the other side. Ciaran seems to have done a little bit better. Obviously, with Matty being away on loan, he didn't get the chance to see it at the club. Yeah. But I definitely think he's certainly got the talent in there, and if he can show now in pre-season that he's got it, then you've almost got another kind of new signing in there, because it's a new player to come in.
Absolutely. Well, Ian's in the comments there saying like the looks of Watts and Anderson. Yeah, I think Watts is really composed at the back, really good positional sense. And Anderson's obviously the Geordie Maradona, isn't he? According to all the Bristol Rovers fans. And he definitely not scared of the ball at all. We've got a Chelsea fan in the comments as well. He's a Shav CR7. He's a Chelsea fan, but a football fan nonetheless. He's excited to see what's happening in Newcastle. We must be buzzing. Great to have you in the comments, mate. You're always welcome here. And yeah, we are really excited, mate. Yeah, absolutely. The goal would be to kind of get into that Champions League title pushing position that you guys are in, mate. So hopefully one day we can go there. A little bit tongue in cheek, I think, by Leroy saying, I'm not sure, but I think Dan Burn is getting the blame for us conceding. He did get that was a couple of little things last season, Dan Burn, wasn't it? But I mean, I don't know. Some people are still. I wouldn't say they're out to get Dan Burn, but I think some people are still unflattered by the Dan Burn signing, and I think the minute anything goes slightly wrong, they're really quick to jump on his back, which is quite a high jump to make. So maybe don't strain yourself because he's about 9'6", isn't he? So we've got Trolls again. He's saying, yeah, I think what he means to say there is Matty isn't good enough, and he hopes he proves them wrong.
I guess the question is he good enough for
is he good enough? Sorry,
I guess we don't know, do we? And this is the problem with him. It is just. He hasn't been at the club during this change, has he? So I guess we'll see over the next few weeks as to whether they believe that he is good enough to do it. I genuinely think he's got the talent to do it, and if he can get it, he can start to show some performances. Then there's no reason why you can't play a part.
Absolutely, yeah. And we've got Leroy saying again, I think Anderson looked really confident from what he saw. I think he is a very confident player, to be fair.
Yeah.
So he's a real exciting prospect. But yeah, I mean, I suppose kind of moving in, it's still in pre-season on to the kind of next one. Just before we finish on that with Matty, we'll get into it more on Wednesday. But there was a lot of talk in the media that Matty was one of the kind of disregarded six, so to speak, of six players that were basically out on their arse. And everyone was saying he was training with the reserves, but just goes to show you that kind of information sometimes can be a little bit off the radar, because everyone was saying he's training with the reserves. Next thing you see, he's in the first team training. He's playing against Gateshead, and he's also off to Austria with the rest of the guys. We've seen him come off the coach and check into the hotel. Nicely played, yeah. We're getting better at this, man, aren't we? So, he's obviously part of the pre-season plans, at least to the point where Eddie wants to take him to Austria, and to be fair, I think I put this in our chat group early on, didn't I? One of the big things that Bruce did say about Matty was he was worried about his weight, and he did look quite skinny and quite kind of, I wouldn't say weak is the right word, but he didn't look like he was going to, survive a midfield battle, did he, last season? But he looks like he's maybe hit the gym a little bit in the summer, and he looks like he's filled out a little bit more, can he, to be fair, in the pictures we saw.
I mean, there's an irony in that statement about Steve Bruce worried about somebody's weight, isn't there? I mean, Jesus Christ, come on.
Oh, yeah.
But no, I kind of get the point, because he does look, at times he looks fragile, doesn't he? Especially playing in that central role. But he does look to have done a little bit of work over the last few months and stuff. And I guess he's had a lot of playing time as well, so that obviously helps. So yeah, I think it's actually it's tough to disagree with that. I think championship level might be now, and I guess if there was going to be a loan deal to come, that might be it. To go and play in the championship for a season, go and prove yourself, and come back next season. Is it? You've obviously got to have these homegrown quotas and stuff, especially for Europe. Is he one that fits into that bill?
That's exactly it. And, Raging Phoenix is saying there his worry is the size of the squad. If we get 2 or 3 more players in, the squad's going to be something like 37, 38. I mean, that probably moves us quite well onto a next category, actually, I suppose, as well, which we're going to get stuck into a minute. But just before we do, obviously, the Austrian trip. So the lads are over in Austria. We're having 2 games. We've got a game on Friday and a game on Monday. So we've got 1860 Munich on Friday at 2:30. And on the 18th, the Monday at 4 p.m, we've got, is it Mainz? Now, you're better at these pronunciations than I am. Where's the Lynchman when you need him? But the good news is both those games are going to be on YouTube for free, which is awesome. I think that's a really, really nice touch by the club, because everyone's always scratching around looking for a stream, and you find it on like some weird, Uzbekian TV channel, after some like soap opera or something like that, and it just comes on. You think, what the fuck's it doing on there? Everyone's on Twitter asking for streams. So I think it's really, really good that the club have done that, and they've obviously been quick to come out and do that. I mean, I think it's just another sign, isn't it, how this club has changed under this new ownership, isn't it, mate?
It's a little bit more fan friendly, isn't it? I think that's what you want. It's a shame they're right smack in the middle of the working day, but we can't. Beggars can't be choosers.
Not for us travelling sales reps, mate. Not for us. There'll be a lay-by somewhere watching this, mate.
I'll find a point on my desk just to have me phone streaming the game on YouTube at some point and get told off. But who cares? You only live once, don't you?
That's what hotspots were made for, mate. Hotspots are made for watching pre-season games on the hoof in a lay-by, mate. So we'll be absolutely spot on. But we've got another comment in there about Matty. Just we'll cover that before we move on. So he said, remembers when Matty was running around snapping at the feet of St Etienne players and he scored that world in off the bar. I think I remember that. It was absolutely class. Not my working day, says Ian. Now he'll be making some special allowances for for watching the game, I think, mate. But yeah, so it should be a good tester for the lads. I mean, even just the training camp, mate. As we said there, they checked into some really good facilities by the looks of it. They've been walking around the mountains. Looks like the fucking Sound of Music or something in the background, So it seems to be quite picturesque. And really, I think just a good spot for the players to get to, and have really good facilities, work together as a team. You can see them laughing and bonding. They're already driving, little fucking golf cabbies around everywhere and laughing and joking and stuff like that. So there seems to be a real bit of bonding going on, doesn't there, with the lads? I think you need that in pre-season, especially for the new players, Mark, don't you, to integrate them in.
Exactly. They're coming into an environment that is brand new, so to come into that welcoming environment that there is now, and everybody with a proper focus on where they're going and not wondering what the hell's going to happen next and how much of a fight they're going to be in. It is now very much focused on the next step up the league table, isn't it? So they know what they're doing, absolutely, and it shows on their face. They're coming in and now enjoying themselves, and they're enjoying the journey, and this is the early steps, but you can just see it on their faces just how much they're enjoying this.
Absolutely. I think it's on the Newcastle United YouTube channel, actually, I think, mate. Is what it said. If you just look for it, you type in NUFC on YouTube on the day of the game, I think you'll be able to see it on there, mate. It should just come up. And I think Leroy saying that he thinks it's 1:30 BST on the Friday and 3 BST on the Monday. That's fine, yeah. So obviously the time difference there as well, mate. But yeah, you should be able to find it, actually. Just type in the search, mate, and I think it should come up there. But there is a couple of players who aren't in Austria walking around the picturesque hills of the Sound of Music, mate. The Unwanted, as we've named them. So we mentioned it was kind of the despicable six, so to speak. That we all thought Matty Longstaff was one of them. He might still be, for all we know. If he has a shit time in Austria, he might still be on that list. But the players, I think, as far that were listed, certainly it was Dwight, Gayle, Ciaran Clark, Carl Darlow. Tell me if I got one wrong, Mark. Matty Longstaff was another. Hendrick was the fifth. Who was the sixth? Who was the sixth in the unwanted six? Do you remember? Was it Carl Darlow? I've said Carl Darlow already.
You've already said Darlow. I can't remember.
Remember who it was?
Yeah.
NUFC TV. Johnny Jack saying Ashley for that, mate. So check that out as well. NUFC TV.
I can't think.
Yeah, so well, that's all right, because at the minute it's only really these two, isn't it? That there seems to be a bit of traction with. Darlow's obviously over in Austria. Matty's there as well. I don't think Jeff Hendrick's there. I'm not sure. I didn't see him in any of the pictures, so I don't think he's travelled either. He'll be with the under-23s as well. So the rumour goes that Dwight Gayle, great servant for the club, certainly in the Championship as well, absolute goal machine. We would never have got back up without him. But it looks like Dwight Gayle maybe heading to one of your favourite clubs, Mark. Birmingham City is the reported club that he's going to. I mean, to be fair, if that does come off, Birmingham City getting a really good goal scorer. But I find that weird, because they are. Did they stay in the Championship, didn't they? Or did they go down, Birmingham City? I can't remember.
No, they stayed up.
They stayed up just by the skin of their teeth.
Again, by the skin of their teeth. I think based on the fact that Reading had a points deduction. So, I mean, they're a mess of a club at the best of times. Their prospective new owner believes that they're going to win the league.
He was on TalkSport, wasn't he?
Jesus, what an absolute buffoon that bloke is. But yeah, do you know, it's his level, isn't it, for Gayle? So if he goes in, it's he's going to score your goals in the Championship. It is absolutely the place for him to be. So he'll do a good job. Whoever he plays for down there, he will do a good job. So if they can bring him in, that's a huge signing for them, because he will guarantee them goals, and probably not being dragged into a relegation fight again.
Absolutely, but as Jody Jack says, they are a mess, top to bottom, really.
Agreed.
So good luck to Gayle. And Jody 2 and Fly, if even on the YouTube, buddy, good to have you back in the comments, mate. Yeah. So the other player obviously is Ciaran Clark. Now, Ciaran Clark's obviously fell from grace massively, and we've just improved the squad. We improved the squad with Dan Burn coming in January. Obviously, the bot man is in now as well, so Clark's not getting a sniff whatsoever. So the talk is that Ciaran Clark, I think that's going to happen very soon. I think there's a medical booked in, according to Keith Downey, that Ciaran Clark is going to go to Sheffield United on loan, which is an interesting one. But I think that's probably more to do with Sheffield United not being able to afford the transfer fee than anything else, Mark. Would you agree with that, mate? Do you think that's the reason it's a loan deal on a permanent?
Possibly. Has he got a year left?
I think
so. It almost
possibly
makes sense to do that. Try and save
get
them
on a free
if they can on wages, and then get them on a free. Even just be a part of the group to get them up, and then just go, thank you very much, on your way. We don't want you because we're back in the, we're back in the Premier League again. So from their perspective, it makes sense. Newcastle, you'd want some money for him, but I just think it's cut your losses. You're not going to get an awful lot from him. I think the only chance really was the report that he might have gone to the US, but that disappeared as quickly as it came up. So I think again he's probably one of those that he's at that level. Let him go, get him off the wage bill, get him away from the goal, because he's just not good enough.
Ian's got a good point there. I think that red card and punching the lad in Saudi didn't do him any favours, mate. You're right. He was to be fair.
Make any friends, was it? To be fair,
no. And I was going to say, to be fair to Ciaran Clark, again, looking at him in isolation, same with Gayle, this just shows you how stale the club was under Mike Ashley. These players were great in the Championship. Most clubs, when they come up, get rid of these players, move them on, and improve them. We didn't do it. We kept them on the wage bill. We kept them for ages, and they just regressed. Because the Premier League never stays still. It evolves every single year. It gets better. Better players come in. Look at it now. Haaland's in the league. Nunes at Liverpool. There's better players that come, and you have to raise your game, and you have to improve season after season. And the likes of Gayle, Hendrick, Clark, all these players got to that level where they just were never going to get there. So we should have really jettisoned them off years ago, probably when they were more sellable assets, and you could have got a bit more money for them. But obviously Ashley didn't work that way, Mark, did he? And because of that, we've been stuck with them, really. And I think it's a case of they're still decent Championship players. And with Clark, he has been a good servant for the club, and he is a good defender at that level. I think Sheffield United will get a good player there, mate, won't it, to be fair?
Yeah, he's not terrible. He's had his time in the Premier League. His time is up. I think that you go back to the Ashley bit. Giving Gayle, it was a 3-year contract last year. It was an unbelievably poor bit of business. But I guess at his point, you don't know that the takeover is going to happen. You kind of prepare to have players around that aren't going to cost you an awful lot of money. So it starts to make some sense from that point of view. But they're players that you just want to move on and take another step on the ladder. It's something that just never really happened under Ashley, did it?
Yeah. Well, we must say, though, going back, Ciaran Clark's done a lot of good things for this club. The best thing he ever did was getting the red card against Norwich and giving birth to Joe Linton, the midfield enforcer. Because if he hadn't been such a wanker that game, Joe Linton wouldn't have moved back and become the best defensive midfielder or box-to-box midfielder the game has ever known. So we've got to thank him for that, mate, to be fair. So I thought I'd be sensational tonight as the Lynchman's not on, so that'll be the sensational one today.
He goes with everybody's blessing now then, rather than being kicked out of the club.
Exactly. Oh, we've got Ugly Bear in the comments. Good to see you again, Ugly Bear, mate. A lot going on at Manchester United, mate, but we'll always welcome any fans in our comments, even though we're Newcastle predominantly, we always welcome any fans coming in. I think Raging Phoenix has hit the dirty six there, as I want to call it. I can just keep calling them different names, don't I? Dirty six, greedy six, whatever six. So we've got Gayle, Clark, Fernandez, Hendrick, Longstaff, and Darlow with a 6. Yeah, you're right. Fernandez is over in Austria as well, which again is an interesting one. Because I think with him, it's probably more depth, isn't it, Mark, over there? Because You might, because you can use as many players as you want effectively in those games. So maybe Eddie Howe's just thinking, look, well, there's no point in leaving him there. We'll take him with us, get him a bit of fitness under his belt. You can maybe have a bit of game time against those two sides. Maybe other clubs will watch him. Because of that, they might take him on. But much like Clark, because of the botman coming in, Dan Burn and Cher, and then obviously you got Watts as well, who's looking really good. If he sticks around, I haven't even said Lascelles, have I? But I don't think that Fernandez is going to get a sniff either, really, mate, is he? I think he'll be out the door.
No, it's squad depth, but as who's it said before that you're running on a 37, 38 player squad if you keep all these players around. That he has to be one that is moved on as well, because you're not going to use 6 or 7 centre backs. Realistically, so he has to be one that moves on, and hopefully will it gives you a little bit of money coming in. It's another player off the wage bill.
Absolutely, and Leroy just remembered the nutcase Birmingham owner, which
he was Watford, wasn't he? That was right. He was at Watford. He's an absolute lunatic.
He's an absolute nutcase. And just one here for Ugly Bear. Yeah, well said, mate. The absolutely great game. Yeah. Mark was glued to it before we come on. That's probably where the technical glitch come from, because his head was still spinning after watching that game. So,
I get off topic, but if somebody finds a better player in the world of football at the moment than Beth Mead, then they're a better man than I am, because she is sensational.
There you go. Trolls is not happening. He's getting credit for Big Joe. It's all tongue in cheek, Trolls. We do thank Eddie Howe for that one, mate, to be honest with you, mate. But Steve Bruce will probably take credit for that, no doubt. He'll be in some talking in a few years' time and go, well, I remember when I made Joe a midfielder, and they go, you weren't even there, you fucking arsehole.
Steve Bruce or Postman Pat?
Well, there's not much between them, mate, to be honest with you. But I wouldn't want Steve Bruce delivering my fucking mail. God knows where that'll go, mate. Jesus Christ. Ian's back in the comments saying, yeah, Freddy is a decent player. I think for a championship team, you're right, mate. Promotion chasing championship teams, could do a hell of a lot worse. And having Fernandez, he's captain material, isn't he, Mark? He's a leader, but I just think he's getting to that stage of his career where his body's just, little knocks here and there is knocking him out for months instead of weeks. And I just think it's getting to that. When we signed him, he was never going to be there for 4 or 5 years. He was always going to be a couple of year player. And he was good when he came in. At a time, he looked the best defender that we had. But I just think Father Time's caught up on him, mate, really, haven't they? One of a better word.
Yeah. I mean, look at it. Was it early last season where you're screaming at the team, go, why the hell is he nowhere near the squad, let alone that, being in the team? He wasn't getting a place on the bench. And he's probably, of the group that was there, the better defender of that group, and he wasn't playing it. It's always a niggly injury that just keeps him away. What's that?
Yeah, I totally agree with that. If we win the Champions League, Steve Bruce will claim credit for starting that, Jay. There's no doubt about that. And we're all international tonight. We've got somebody joining us from the Caribbean island of Puerto Rico. So good evening to you, Francisco. Nice to have you in the comments, mate. If we solidify our midfield and sign a great winger, that takes pressure off Wilson. And I'd keep Almiron over Shelby, I think he means there. But that's an interesting segue as well into our transfer update. It's almost like we're planning these, Mark, isn't it? We're just rolling with the punches tonight. Brilliant. So the transfer update, the biggest story probably for transfer targets in terms of who we're chasing is obviously Lucas Paqueta, the Lyon midfielder, Bruno's best buddy. He wants out of Lyon, mate. He has tossed in a transfer request, and apparently Lyon are holding out for about between 50 to 55 million. Arsenal are interested. We're obviously interested. How do you see this one going, mate? Do you think Paqueta's going to be a Newcastle player, or do you think we're going to miss out?
It's a good fight, and I tell you, it's a positive that you're in that conversation again. But he obviously wants out. Lyon missed out on European football this season. They didn't even make the Europa Conference. That's how poor a season they've had. So he wants away. Does he want to go? Would you prefer to go to Arsenal for what they're doing? They do have the benefit of playing in Europe. I guess he'd want to be Champions League level team. But there's the sway of what's going on here, and does the pull of Bruno being there give him that little bit of an edge? Hopefully. I used to be a hell of a signing. If you can bring in him and a winger, to come in, somebody like Diaby to play on that right hand side. That would be an insane pairing to have come in.
Absolutely. Imagine getting him your right Raging Phoenix.
What?
He'd be absolutely unbelievable. We've got a great one there, but Steve Bruce would be the worst postie ever. We'd have had our post on Monday in 15 years. Right. He would be terrible. You get all the addresses wrong and everything, mate, wouldn't you?
I imagine Bruce being somewhere in the region of what? Oh God, my brain's gone. The delivery service.
Hermes.
Hermes. There you
shit
go.
One. Yeah, the shit one.
Jesus
yeah.
Christ.
But unless you're listening, Hermes, and you want to sponsor the channel, and we think you're fantastic, you always deliver. So
they're not called Hermes anymore, so I think we're all right.
Fuck, I'm all right then. Fuck it, that's shit. That's shit. Hermes is shit. But yeah, I'm just laughing at this comment as well from Raging Phoenix. Imagine getting Paqueta ahead of Arsenal again. We would so have to mug them off on social media and the announcement, like we did with Bruno as well, because that was fucking hilarious. All the Arsenal fans were in absolute meltdown, weren't they? It was the funniest thing I've seen in a transfer in many years.
I mean, to be fair, they're going to melt down over the smallest of things anyway. So that was brilliant. So if it happens again, there has to be some fun with them.
I think there's more arguing on Arsenal fan TV than there actually is in the Houses of Parliament, to be brutally honest with you. If you watch it for 5 minutes, it's quite humorous. Yeah, you're right. We've got Bruno to sell the club. Yeah, so hopefully Bruno can do that job. He seems to love the club. He seems to love everything that's going on there. Paqueta looked like he really enjoyed his time on the quayside with Bruno and the wives, didn't he? When he was taking all the selfies. So you never know. Maybe he kind of liked what he saw. Trolls has got, sorry, I beg your pardon, Ugly Bear's got an interesting comment. We should sign Tammy Abraham. I'd love Tammy, but I just don't think Roma would sell him. Not while Jose's there. And I think they'd want Christ Mark. What would they want for Tammy? 60, 70 million quid or something?
Given the season he's just had, it would be an extraordinary amount of money to pull him out of Italy now. And I think that was maybe one, if you could have done it last season, absolutely. Yeah. But it would take a huge amount of money to and he would be brilliant. I think in that kind of one striker system with the wide players, like St. Maximin cutting in and somebody like Diaby from the other side cutting in, I think he would flourish.
Absolutely. So just got in a couple of comments there about Paqueta. I say, imagine Joe Linton, Bruno and Paqueta, one of the best in the league ever happened. 100%. I could not disagree with that one bit. Leroy saying, we can let Arsenal get Paqueta. We can't let them, sorry. It'll upset Bruno. And if we still want them in a couple of seasons, you're right. Yeah, we don't want to upset Bruno. My God. Bruno's the main man. We're keeping as happy as we possibly can. And we've got no way you'd pay over 35 for Tammy, I think, Ian. I don't know, man. He's had a good season, mate. He's really put himself in the shop window there, really, hasn't he, to be fair? So, in terms of, he's put himself up there with the elite strikers in Europe, in terms of his goal scoring and assists in Roma. He looks like he's really improved as a player. I know you're a big fan of Tammy, Mark, aren't you? From previous time,
Yeah, I think he's not given the opportunity he should have had back at Chelsea. He needed to find another home, really, that was going to give him the opportunity. He's got to roll, and he's either the highest scoring English player or UK-based player to have played in Italy now, certainly English.
Yeah.
So he's got good pedigree, hasn't he? He can absolutely do it. I kind of get the comment about 35 million for him because I'm not sure I would pay more than that. They will obviously want more. It comes back to the conversation about what's he worth to the club, and he's worth a lot more than that to Roma now.
100%.
Because it would cost them probably more than that to replace that.
Yeah, well, Mr. Foreman's in the comments. Good to see you, mate. If you haven't, please click subscribe, buddy. Paqueta, Diaby and a striker is the best window ever. Barbosa is a good shot. Yeah, we did a video on Barbosa, or Gabby Goal, as he's called, Mark, didn't we? He's got some ability. He's got pace. He can get in behind. He's better, but he seems to be better suited to the Brazilian league than he did do with his little spell in Europe. He had a real difficult time, didn't he? But the worry for me, I think, with Barbosa, I did the video, didn't I? He's got a bad discipline record, and he likes it. He likes a yellow and a red card, doesn't he, old Gabby Goal? That would concern me in the Premier League.
He does have that fiery nature to him. I think he has flourished since he's gone back to Brazil. Let's not forget that when he did come over, he was still very young, and I think we touched on that one. He's grown a bit, and he's definitely one that will interest a lot of European clubs now, that you can look back a few seasons ago and yes, it didn't work at Inter, it didn't work at Benfica, but he's grown up a bit. Yes, he's got that fiery nature, but sometimes that works for you. My only drawback in the number of Brazilians you've got coming in is if they're all in the Brazil squad together and they're traveling huge distances to go and play in friendlies and in qualification, World Cup qualifiers and stuff, is how many games are you going to lose them for?
True.
And do you lose them all together? And that's got to be a consideration from the management to go. We can't afford for this to have so many South Americans, not just Brazilians.
That's true.
You're going to look at some of the Argentinian ones as well that you maybe have been linked with. That it is a consideration because there are times when that might happen, and if God forbid we have any more bloody restrictions come in for travel, that could hamper them too. So
you'd be in massive trouble. So there was another comment there, just jumping the gun there. Another South American, he is a nutcase. Jeez. He's a red card waiting to happen, Mr. Foreman. I tell you what, mate. My dad's a Celtic fan. I don't think he'd let me back in the house if we signed Morelos. I'll tell you that. Raging Phoenix is saying that's a great shout, Ollie Watkins. I've heard a few people mention Ollie Watkins. I know the Lynchman, a member of the Evermore squad's a huge fan of Ollie Watkins, and I think Ollie Watkins is a really good player. He's got that pace. He's got that ability to find space. I think he's got the ability to get better and better as well. The ceiling's very high, I think, for Ollie Watkins. But I just can't see Gerrard and Villa letting him go to Newcastle United, given the fact that as clubs, rightly or wrongly, regardless of how much money's behind the scenes, we're kind of at the same point in our journey, aren't we, as two different clubs? And I can't see Villa letting us get Watkins, mate.
Not without somebody substantial coming in to fill the space for him. I mean, his work rate is unbelievable. If you watch him, he never stops.
He's relentless, isn't he?
He will just keep running down defenders all day long. His finishing isn't the greatest. He's hit double figures 2 seasons running now, so he is. He can find the net. I think with better service, he will score more goals. I think he showed that playing with Grealish. I think he was let down a little bit last season where he didn't quite score so many goals until later on. I think when Coutinho came in, he started to find a bit more form. So definitely put better players around him, and he'll score goals. And he's got plenty of time ahead of him to be able to improve as well. So it's definitely one to consider, I think.
Absolutely. I think Leroy's just backing up your comment there as well, saying that he'd love to have Joe, Bruno, Paqueta and Gabigol in our squad, but then they'd be off to the Copa America. I mean, it can't be long until Joe gets a call up for Brazil. I mean, the midfielders are decent, but they don't do what Joe Linton does. So it wouldn't be surprised if he starts the season, like a house on fire and gets that attention again. He's linked up with Bruno. Wouldn't surprise me in the slightest if somebody does give him a cap from Brazil. So Ian's saying again, losing a whole centre midfield when Brazil play would be a nightmare. Exactly. That just backs up what we're saying there as well about Joe getting a cap. There was another player that we did a transfer video on, Mark, actually, which none of the guys have mentioned yet. There's a player that I'd be interested in getting. That was Callum Hudson-Odoi from Chelsea. Obviously, a bit part player really in that Chelsea machine, which is Chelsea's a club that can do that to players, regardless of how talented you are. You can almost be there. I mean, we had a couple of players, Chelsea, way back when, Scott Parker and Duff didn't win, and they came to Newcastle, and for a time they were brilliant players for Newcastle, but they could barely get, a sniff at Chelsea. I know Duff started well, then he faded away a bit when they signed, Robin and guys like that. But I think looking at Callum Hudson-Odoi, he was 21 years old, right-footed, only had 3 caps for England. That's criminal for a player of that ability. Surely he'd be a good signing for the club, mate, wouldn't he? And he'd walk into our team on the right-hand side.
I do think so. I think I think somebody touched on this in the Callum Hudson-Odoi video the other day, that there is a slight worry with him that he does have injury issues. He's had a couple of Achilles problems that
he has, missed a few games, hasn't he?
Just made me question it, especially if we're talking about huge amounts of money. But he is properly talented, and he would be a huge improvement in what's to the squad, and at 21 he's got years ahead of it. It fits the mold, doesn't it, of young hungry players that can take that next step on in their careers, and and provide a foundation for the next, potentially 10 years. If you talk of, the likes of Botman at 22, and if he was to come in at 21,
22, yeah.
What's Diaby's 22 as well? If somebody like that was to come in, was Bruno 24? So you've got.
Yeah, I think Paqueta's 44 to Paqueta's 24 as well. I think 25.
I thought you were going to say he was 42. There, I was going to it's past it.
It's a fine wine.
He looks good for 42.
He does look very good. He's wearing that very well, mate.
It's but no, I think Callum Hudson-Odoi would be a great signing. I do think he is certainly again, like I say, one to consider, because he would just be a huge step up from some of the players that are already in the squad.
Absolutely. I mean, you hit the nail on the head. I think, when you mentioned the guy's name there, I mean, Diaby seems to be the number one choice, doesn't he? We're really going after him. We want the player. And I think the players played it quite well as well. He's not really made any noises about it. Kind of like Botman, there was loads of quotes being attributed to Botman, but he kept quite quiet, didn't he, about the whole thing. So that tells me there might be a lot of truth in this Diaby rumour. But he's obviously reported back for training at Leverkusen. I saw him looking all happy and smiley on social media, when his first day back at pre-season. But, the Leverkusen sporting director's already come out and said, obviously they want to keep him. They're confident he's going to be there. However, when a club with financial spending of that magnitude comes in, with a project that's hard to kind of, dismiss, obviously, but we won't stand in the player's way type of a thing. So I think it's going to be a little bit of that brinkmanship, like I said in the video, Mark, isn't it, in terms of, the Botman deal where Newcastle dug their heels in and they didn't allow, Lille to take them to the cleaners, and I think it'll be a similar thing with Diaby, won't it? But if that doesn't work out, I think the likes of, Callum Hudson-Odoi, Anthony Gordon, Senzio, all these other players that are being lined up, they're probably the backup plans, would you think, mate, to the main man?
I think they're probably choice two. You've got that. The one that you want is Diaby. If he's not available, then you have to have the other options there. And I think somebody like Asensio coming in and playing on that side as well would be terrific.
20 million as well. 20 million is a good deal for that lad. He's a good player for that 20 million.
I think he's a fantastic footballer. He hasn't played an awful lot of football over the last couple of seasons, so he's got time ahead of him too. Not that amount, but he's got plenty of time to come in and do a job. And for 20 million, I think that's a bit of a steal. But yeah, I think you have to try and take your first target, don't you? And if Diaby's the right player, and I think that attitude as well will sit well with Newcastle. Will sit well with Eddie Howe and going back to training, being focused on what you're doing, not being distracted by what else is going on, not pushing for this, pushing for that. That looks very good for the player, doesn't it? It shows a level of professionalism that others just don't have.
Absolutely. It's interesting. I saw him talking to Sven Botman as well in training. He was showing kind of Sven Botman how he wants him to shape up and that. And I thought that's really cool. That he's just, this guy is one of the most sought after centre backs in Europe. And Eddie Howe was saying, right, come on, I'll show the Eddie Howe way. Interesting comment by Jordy Jack there. Isn't the Copa America usually in June? I can't remember, Mark. Is it June, the Copa America? I can't really remember that. It's not too bad if it is it?
Yes, I think it usually is June to July.
Just as Leroy's saying there, it's not too bad then if it is June, then we don't miss the players.
No, not at all. But you've got the long distance for qualifiers, and that's the big one where you've got, a flight to Brazil, and then players that then go and play in places like Chile or
Venezuela and Peru and all that, and
Bolivia, where you're playing in altitude, altitude, and then the long plane ride back, and it's tough. That's tough. You can take it out of them, so you run the risk of losing them for at least a game when that happens. So it is difficult, and you've got to be careful of having someone, especially with somebody said, if you've got three Brazilians in the centre midfield and you lose all three of them for a game, that's massive, and you can guarantee that the next game will be against one of the top teams. It's not going to be, the team sitting bottom of the league. It is going to be a Liverpool or City, somebody like that.
I mean, look how influential, Bruno's been since he's come in, and Joe Linton as well. If you lost them two, Christ, you'd be in big trouble. Yes, Ian's just saying as well, he thinks Diaby's number one as well, and they'll cash in on him later on in the window, just got to stay on the Toon project. Yeah, absolutely, mate. I think as Mark said this before as well, when you look at the likes of the atmosphere, Toon flags, behind us there on the background. Mark hit the nail on the head when we did a video after the Arsenal game. I think it was Mark that, wasn't it? If you see that as a footballer around the world, you see that atmosphere, that's going to make you go, fucking hell, look at that. What is going on there? And he'll be aware of Newcastle United being a young French guy growing up, Paris Saint-Germain player. We had obviously Ginola here, we had Robert here, French players, likes of Henry, Cantona, Vieira, Petit, all these guys played in the Premier League. So they would be aware of Newcastle United as a club and the history, in terms of who we were and who we've, been over the years. And then we had that glut of French players, didn't we? Ben Arfa and Cabaye.
Just about to come back to that, because there was that
huge
run of players that came in from France, wasn't there? So they're well aware. And the recent history isn't there for trophies and for being at the right end of the league. But historically, Newcastle have done well for French players. So
absolutely. Yeah, especially when Graham Carr was here. I think he must have had a chateau in France or something, Graham Carr, because he was fucking pulling French players out of his arse. Yeah, even at UM, I got to see in the comments. Yeah, we can't let Arsenal get Paqueta though. 100%. Yeah, I think bugger off. They've already got Gabriel Jesus, haven't they? So they can have him, and that'll be done. Cornet's an interesting one. He's got a 17.5 million quid release fee. I'm not really sold on Cornet, mate. I think he had little glimpses of looking all right. Obviously, Leo really wants Diaby as well. Don't we all, mate? But I'm not too sure on Cornet, Mark. I know you think he's a decent player. I know the Lynchman's a fan, but would he really add that much to the squad, mate?
It does give you versatility. He can play down the sides. He can play through the middle. He is a goal threat. He's
Burnley's best player by far when he was there, mate. No doubt about that.
Country mile. I think he let himself down with a penalty towards the end of the season, which didn't sit well with people. But it's one of those that's a small enough amount of money to go, actually, we could take a chance on him. But you've also look at, along with that, you go, well, he was playing at Burnley, who were dreadful. And you didn't have to do an awful lot to stand out in that team. So, yeah, it's one. If the fee's right, then it might be a good move. But is he just coming in as another squad filler? And there's plenty of those already.
Absolutely, that's an interesting one by Joey Jack. He'd leave Diaby a year and get Asensio and Paqueta this window. Do you know what, Jack? That's a great window anyway. Even if we get those two players, and as Mark rightly said, I mean, Asensio's a 26-year-old Spanish international Real Madrid player. He's got great pace, skill, tuck inside, smash a ball in the back of net. He's a good goal scorer as well. More goals than our wingers get. And if you get Paqueta as well, mate, they're two unbelievable signings. You're right. We could maybe leave the inflation of the Diaby deal to drop a little bit if he doesn't have as much of a barnstorming season as he previously had. And then we could maybe get him for a better song. Raging Phoenix is saying he wanted Jesus just to complete the Holy Trinity, the Pope, the Saint, and Jesus to complete it. I love that, mate. Absolutely brilliant. Evangelical on the Evermore podcast tonight. I love a bit of that, mate.
Who's he Teeth Right?
I think he's South America. I think he's in the Copa America. I think Evangelical. But no, I mean it's just nice, as we always say, mate. It's nice to be linked to these players. Another player, just moving on to this to wrap it up, I suppose. Another player that's come back to the fore. We've already done a video on this. Is Alexander Isak from Real Sociedad, Mark, isn't it? That he had one of those unbelievable seasons, the season before last, where everything he hit went in the back of the net. Pace, power, skill. Still a young player. He's 22, 23 as well, so he's still a very young player. He is a very good footballer, but I just think he's had a bit of an iffy season last season, mate, hasn't he? But, is it 40 million that Sociedad won for the lad? I think that's the figure.
Yeah, somewhere around then. I am believed to be having internet issues. Am I skipping a little bit here?
Don't worry, mine's done that 3 times and I've still stuck with it, mate. So Mr. Foreman saying Isak not good enough in his opinion, mate. What's your take on Isak, mate?
Yeah, you go back a season. He was phenomenal form. I think he did definitely have a drop off this season. I think he only had 6 goals in the Liga this season, which is a bit of a drop off in form. But you're right. He's 22 still. He's got masses of time ahead of him. He's quick. He's good in the air. He's a big, tall lad as well. He can certainly give you that player to come in and play that central role and play on his own.
Could he play in a 3 with Wilson and Maxi or not? Do you think he'd be more suited through the middle?
I think he'd be more suited to playing through the middle. So as either as a backup, but almost a longer term replacement for Wilson.
Yeah, because he's younger. Yeah.
Yeah, he's got plenty of time ahead of him to learn, especially learn from Wilson as well, to learn to better his movement. But 40 million is possibly a little bit too much. But if Newcastle stick to their guns with that, do they do the same as what they've done already and play this well and get him for a price that's right for them, because they've shown that they're willing to stick it out until they can get the price, the player they want at the price that's right.
It's a good job. I was going to say, it's a good job you haven't got the purse strings in. We'll still be going after bloody Chowdhury in your budget, mate. So get them over that line. So Emma's saying, why can't we get Paqueta and Diaby and a striker on loan? Well, Broja's been linked on loan quite a lot, but he's over with Chelsea in the pre-season, isn't he? So I don't know what that means. I've seen loads of players leave clubs in pre-season and come back on a flight, so I wouldn't read too much in that. But Ashley didn't spend that much over the years, did he? We did a great video on this. Adam had Ciaran Maguire on, the football finance expert, so check that one out if you haven't already. That's on the video list. And he explained kind of the spending restrictions Newcastle have got this window. I think the biggest problem that we have, Emma, is, and correct me if I'm wrong, Mark, but Ciaran had said that there's a lot of kind of auditing and eyes on Newcastle now compared to what Chelsea and City had back in the day, wasn't it? You can't just go and throw money at the wall and say, well, I've him and him and him and him and him. When Chelsea got Drogba and all these other guys in one window, we can't do that, can we?
There's an element of you can, but you're right. Chelsea and Man City didn't have FFP issues at the very beginning of their process. Newcastle have got wiggle room in this. Ashley, the one saving grace from him was that he ran the club pretty much on an even keel. He wasn't losing money, so it opens up the ability to spend more money, so that over the last 3 years you haven't overspent, and it allows you more room. The trouble with Newcastle is that they already have a big squad. They already have relatively, the wages aren't ridiculous, but if you've got 30 players on Premier League wages, it's a huge amount to
it's big money, isn't it, when you add it all together
going out, and you don't have the commercial revenue set up yet. It's coming. We've started to see that with some of the deals that are being made, but the commercial revenue isn't there either to back up the outlays that would be needed.
That was thanks to Ashley taking the piss for years, wasn't it? Really, with the lack of commercial revenue we gave the club for.
Exactly. I don't think there's a reason why you can't sign Paqueta, Diaby, and maybe a Broja on loan. I think that would be an ideal situation, and maybe with an option to buy at the end of the season for Broja would be a perfect one. Certainly come in and be back up to Wilson this season, be allowed to take the pressure off him a bit.
Ian's hit the nail on the head there. We've got to be whiter than white, and that's where the shirt sleeve sponsor more or less kind of covered you a little bit for the Botman deal, so to speak. Mr. Foreman's in the comments have got Icardi or Dybala. Again, I think the wages are an issue with the FFP. I'd love either one of them, mate, to be honest with you, especially on a free. I think Raging Phoenix is saying, isn't Belotti out of contract? Yeah, we covered Belotti on a transfer video as well. Very, very talented footballer, great goal return. But apparently I think he's going to Monaco, Mark. Is that right? Or is that stalled now?
It's funny because a week ago because it was just over a week ago we did the Belotti one, and it was the same day that the news was kind of saying that yes, he was going to go to Monaco, and I guess that they've got Champions League football and they're a tax haven at the end of the day, so you can get away with a lot more. Aren't they lucky to be able to do that? But it has gone quiet, so I don't know whether he's just delaying it. He's weighing up his options with other teams that are maybe sniffing around. But it's certainly one that if I'm a Premier League side, he's a goal scorer. He's free. Yes, his wages will be a little bit higher, but you haven't got the outlay in transfer fee.
In transfer fee, yeah. But they'll be signing on fee. Ciaran said there'll be a signing on fee.
There will be, but but it's not going to be 20, 30, 40 million signing on fee. You're going to save an awful lot of money in that regard, and that you don't have to then use that amortization to move money across the length of a contract. You haven't got that initial outlay for them, so it's a no-brainer for Premier League teams to be pushing for him. I'm just surprised that more haven't.
Yeah, I'm with him. I think West Ham was sniffing around him too, and again, they need a goal scorer because, as I think I said in the video as well, Antonio's kind of dried up a little bit in terms of his goals. Great team player, but goals-wise, dried up. But yeah, Leroy's made a good comment there. Those kind of players are a bit of the I'm too good not to be in the Champions League type players. Yeah, you're right. It takes a real character to come to Newcastle that's not in the Champions League like Bruno did when the relegation zone. It takes a special type of player, in my opinion. BJT's in the comments. How you doing, bud? Good to see you again. Jack Harrison speculation looks interesting. Yeah, we did a video on Jack Harrison. Talented player, mate. Got pace. I think he's got potential to get better as well. I think under Eddie Howe, I think he could really help him kick on as a player. His assists were quite poor, but I think we said in the video, marked him because he didn't have a striker for so much of the season because Patrick Bamford was knackered most of the season. You know what I mean? And I think he was on roughly 65k a week for Belotti, I think is what Raging Phoenix is saying, which isn't bad really, to be fair. So
he's not. I mean, you've got to remember he was playing for a mid to lower level
Torino
team, Torino. So,
yeah.
And he still scored goals for fun. So he's gonna want more than that. You're looking somewhere in the region of 100,000 a week for him. That's manageable, especially if you don't have a transfer fee to pay.
Yeah, but I think one thing's for sure. I mean, obviously, it was said earlier on in the episode that Gayle looks like he's on the way out. So for me, they wouldn't be allowing Gayle to get this far down the line with a Birmingham City if there wasn't another option to come in. Obviously, Ekitike was that planned option. We all know how that's gone. But I do think there's got to be, like you said, Mark, number 2 choice, number 3 choice in the radar, in terms of speaking to the players. And the interesting one, I think Rob Loss has just jumped in the comments. Good to see you, mate. I believe Ekitike should be playing. What's that? Oh, sorry, Nketiah. Sorry,
Nketiah. Well, he's just signed a new deal at Arsenal, hasn't he? So,
yeah, he's staying there. I think he's staying there, mate. Yeah.
I think that's one. That maybe is one for another couple of seasons if he hasn't broken through and is a regular there.
I'd love a superstar from the reserves, Mr. Foreman. Honestly, mate, I'd love that. That's something that we've lacked for so many years. I think we said that about Dan Ashworth when he came in. That's a huge thing that he has to sort out. A club like Newcastle, we grew up in this region, Mark. So many good footballers come out of this region, and we're just not maximising it. They go to Sunderland and Middlesbrough over Newcastle because we've just been so shit over the years, mate, haven't we? Do you know what I mean? So, Jody Jack saying Westendorf Pete is interested as well. Fantastic. Well, I think we're pretty much wrapped up, mate. I think Trolls can sense that as well. Have a good night. I was going to say, Trolls, you're ending the show for us, buddy. We'll have you on as a guest panelist soon, mate. But I think we're pretty much wrapped up, Mark, aren't we? We're going to be back on Wednesday with a good show. We're going to have a bit of a debate with me, Mark, and some of the boys about who should be the number 1 going into the season, because I don't know if anybody saw it, but the Bradford agent's been making some noises that he won't be a number 2 goalkeeper. So we'll save that for Wednesday and come and join us live at 6:30 and let us know what you guys think. But just before I do, we've had a lot of new names there as well in the comments who I've not seen before. Please consider clicking that like and subscribe button if you haven't already. We'd love to have you on board. We're hopefully going to get over 1,300 subscribers soon, which has been amazing. Happened really, really fast for us, and we really appreciate all of the subscribers and the comments as well, which would be absolutely fantastic. So until then, mate, I think that's us pretty much wrapped up, Mark. So it's ta-ra from me and ta-ra from him, and we'll catch you on Wednesday. Cheers, everyone.
Cheers, guys. Take care.
See you later.